Going on, everybody? Kevin Cole here, Unexpected Points, the week review pod. Sorry I didn't hit you up on Friday. Had a few things come up. I don't know how valuable those pods are anyway. I think I'm more in the review business, honestly, than the preview business. Preview, a lot of conjecture, a lot of guessing, a lot of good, a lot of bad. Review, that's kind of where I thrive, I feel like here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to review Week 7, Sunday, everything that went on. And again, looking at this from the numbers-based perspective, this is your number one analytical podcast out there, which, maybe not the best format for analytics, but, get on that Substack, unexpectedpoints.substack.com. Get those advanced reviews. Get access to my Google subscriber sheet, which has all the numbers there for you. But more importantly, I have some commentary there, and I have some commentary that I can make around the numbers here, which may not align with your personal impressions or many people's personal impressions from these games. That's what we're trying to get by looking at these numbers first. You'd be surprised how much different a game can feel and look and impress upon you if you look at the numbers first, then watch the game rather than just watch the game. I'll talk about some of those circumstances in this one. All right, let's go. Let's not go Sunday night first. I've done that before, but I want to just start with the early window here. I'll bring up on the screen for those watching on YouTube. And if you want to do it in the future, I'll have YouTube links to all the different Substack posts that I put out when it is a podcast. You can get on there, subscribe, drop me some comments if you want as I'm going through these, and get on that. And just bring up some of the numbers, but of course, I'll go ahead and walk through them. I'll also try to, say when necessary anything that I'm talking about as far as the numbers are concerned without having to make it something where you have to be watching on the YouTube. All right, let's go early window first. I want to start Baltimore-Detroit in Baltimore. I think this is a very, very interesting game. Not like thrilling, not an interesting score. We had 100%, basically 100%, rounding up to 100% win probability for the Ravens before we got to halftime. So that's not great. But I do think this game gives an impression that's probably quite a bit different from what the reality was in this. And I think in some earlier instances, I've come across as a bit of a Ravens hater, in other words, being a skeptic there. And it's going to happen again today. So I apologize in advance to Ravens fans out there. But, hear me through here. This is not like some personal opinion that I'm giving you here. It's a numbers-based take based upon some of the metrics that I look at. And some of it contextually may look better or worse than what the numbers are saying. And there's always reasons to get around it. But I do think it's interesting if you look at the numbers first before watching the game, although I did see the final score before watching the game, so I knew that it was going to be a wipeout, that you do start to notice a few different things. And you go, okay, I kind of get it, why the adjusted scores are a bit more narrow than the final score. Although let's face it, it's harder to be, it's a 32-point differential, right? 38-6 in this one. So it's harder to have a bigger differential than that when it comes to adjusted scores, because everything looks a little bit more narrow because it's gonna take out the outlier plays. And obviously you need quite a few outlier plays to go in the Ravens fashion in order to have this big of an ass whooping, no matter how good the fundamentals are in this one. But let's talk about it. Okay, so the thing that comes up here, we're talking about Ravens-Lions and why this is a little bit closer than you might think, is really the one metric that you can point to is saying, what was the Ravens in their EPA per play? In other words, just their straight up offensive efficiency in this one, especially those first, let's say, 4 drives where they just march down the field and, score a touchdown every single time that they have it to start. So especially in those versus what their success rate is. Now, points are what matter. So EPA per play is what matters in scoring. That's what the Ravens had basically off the charts, 100th percentile type of situation for those first 4 drives as they marched down and scored every single time. But the manner in which they did it, the success rate was a bit lower. And ideally, you'd want to have the high success rate and high EPA offense, because that shows that you had multiple chances to like convert a bunch of different times. And it wasn't just that you happened to align the big plays and the conversions when you needed them, because that's not going to be the most sustainable going forward. So if you think about this game, let's just look at the overall numbers in this game. So for all of the different offensive performances so far in 2023. So there's been 210. So in other words, 105 games, 210 offensive performances on 2 in each game. If you look at their EPA per play, this game, the Ravens were the 4th best of any of the 210 performances. So it was really, really, really good. 4th best there. Now, if you go by offensive success rate, and their success rate was under 50%. In this, which is still, good, but not nearly as high. I mean, for instance, we have a few games in the 60% success rate so far this season. We have several above 50% in this season. If you look at where they are at 49.2%, it is tied for 45th best out of 210. So again, it's in that top quartile, but it's not close to being, in the top handful of performances as it is in EPA per play. So that's something that detracts from the performance here. They were getting the 3rd and 4th downs when they needed it. Big 4th down conversion on the first drive, 3rd and 8 touchdown on the second drive where he spun around quite a bit for Lamar Jackson. They converted on a 3rd and 8 on the second drive where Lamar Jackson was essentially throwing the ball away, but they had offsetting penalties of an illegal contact down the field and then a intentional grounding. Those offset. They got a second bite at the 3rd down. They converted that. They had a bunch of big plays. I think they had 5 20-plus yard plays on those first couple of few drives. And it's like, I love explosive plays, but the thing was they were mixing in a lot of plays where they weren't gaining yards or barely gaining yards. So unsuccessful plays and then chipping in these 20-yard plays. And hey, if they can continue to do that all season, you tip the cap to them, right, on that one. So that's why it's a little bit, questioning a little bit more the Ravens' offensive performance than what their straight up numbers were in this game, because they were so successful in the big plays, so successful in coming up with the conversions when they needed them. Now, on the Lions side of things, I don't want to ignore what they put up offensively, but their success rate wasn't awful compared to what their score was, 41.3% success rate. And you had a few instances in this game where what happens is you get down really big early. And if you think about in this game for the Lions, so the Ravens have the ball first. They score a touchdown. The Lions get the ball. They almost complete a pass on the sideline, the Jameson Williams, which would have been a first down, but his feet don't quite get in. They get into 3rd and medium. Jared Goff gets sacked on the first drive, right? So Jared Goff gets sacked on the first drive, 3 and out. But pretty good pressure there. They almost convert on a play earlier. So you punt the ball away. The next time you get the ball, so the second time you get the ball, you're looking up the scoreboard, you're down 14-0. And you've only had 3 plays. In the second drive, they have a little swing pass. They have a running play. You get into 3rd and medium. Again, Jared Goff faces pressure on 3rd down, can't convert. So 2 3 and outs. But again, after 2 3 and outs, you look up at the scoreboard, you're down 21-0. And all you've had is the ball twice. You've only had 6 plays. You almost converted on the first one, but you couldn't quite get 2 feet down. And you look up, you're down 21-0. Your win probability in this game, the Lions, it was a 60-40 start by the markets to start this game. So you had a 40% win probability going into the game if you're the Lions. 6 plays on offense. Nothing major. It's not like you threw a pick 6 or a fumble 6 or a turnover or anything. Nothing major there. Just a couple of 3 and outs, which happens. All of a sudden, your win probability is down to 6% the next time you touch the ball. Down from 40 to 6%. Again, Unsuccessful. Ravens score another touchdown. You get the ball back. Your win probability is down to, I think it's 3%. It's like the game's over before it started in a way for the Lions offense, which made things difficult. Um, so I'm not going to like freak out too badly about how they played there. I mean, they didn't have a great success rate passing the ball. They were faced a lot of pressure, but I don't know. It was a bad position to be in, basically, for this here. Another thing to think about, again, when you're down a lot in these games, you take more risk, and when those risky plays go against you, then it looks even worse than the final score. So they came up with 0 points from 2 failed fourth down conversions and an interception where they were all in Ravens territory. So that's another thing. Like, they had chances, but they said, we got to press it because this offense on the other side of the field is just crushing us. So we have to continue to press it. And, they rolled the dice a few times, and they came up craps. They crapped out all 3 times, which really compiled and made the score even worse as it looked here. Lamar Jackson, 25.4 total EPA generation in this game, and that includes only 1.3 rushing or scrambling. So this is really the best total game that Jackson has had since any game. So you have to go back to his 2019 MVP season, but in that season, a lot of it was on the ground, and it wasn't on the ground here. So this is something unique we're seeing from Jackson here. And we'll see about the sustainability. Again, he's been up or down. It's interesting that his completion percentage has been so high the entire season, but yet the success rate and the EPA per play when he's dropped back the pass hasn't been great until this game. Well, actually, he's had another couple of okay games, but this was really like the super breakout game sort of here. Some of the plays maybe you can discount a little bit, like an 80-yard reception to Gus Edwards later on when it was totally in garbage time. But I think the real big difference happened up front, where Jackson had a lot of time to pass. He was pressured, but a lot of times those pressures came after he held the ball quite a long time on those first few drives. So he got some pressure. He was able to escape and make plays in those high leverage downs. A rushing play on 4th down, some big conversions on 3rd down, passing the ball when he had some time to pass. Whereas Goff just didn't really have that much time. I mean, he took 5 sacks. And he's normally pretty good at avoiding sacks. I think part of it was just they had to drop back the pass so often that the Ravens, again, could just pin back their ears on defense. They knew they were up 21-0 before the Lions even had the ball a 3rd time, and they could come with pressure, but they were getting pressure pretty much early. And that was really the difference in this game, and the quarterbacks not being able to operate because of those circumstances. So again, tip of the cap to the Ravens, but I got to focus on things that may be different from what our perception was. And, my numbers are not going to be quite as high on the Ravens in this game as the numbers coming out of it. All right, let's go to Chicago. Everyone's favorite Tyson Bagent versus Brian Hoyer. Man, Hoyer was awful in this one. Negative 15% completion percentage over expected. Losing about 0.15 EPA per play, and huge negatives in this one. So 2 interceptions that totaled, let's see here, how much is that? 12.3 EPA lost on 2 interceptions. Although one of them was pretty late in the game in the 4th quarter where it kind of didn't matter anymore. They were down 24-6. Eventually gets yanked. They bring in Aiden O'Connell, who had a pretty good preseason too. He was kind of similar to Bagent as far as how well did he play during the preseason. How did Tyson Bagent have a 2-yard ADOT? I gotta watch this game. 2 yards. What the hell? What happened here? I mean, he didn't have to do a lot because they ran the ball well, and obviously their defense caused turnovers here. Yeah, maybe I got to put like fraudulent watch on this EPA per play that he had in this game with this 2-yard ADOT. What happened there? Is that a correct number? Anyone who watched this game can tell me whether or not it was really that ugly. I'm going to cop to the fact that I did not watch this one so far. Aiden O'Connell came in, though, played pretty well. So maybe if Jimmy is down again, they'll go with him versus Hoyer, just saying, hey, we got to give him some more looks. We know what we got in Hoyer, and it ain't good. The Bears' victory, it's kind of interesting. This has moved them up now into a four-way tie for the third worst record in the NFL at 2-5. Now they're still holding on to the Panthers pick, and the Panthers are 0-6, so they got the number one pick that way. But going into this week, I think they had the number one and the number two pick as of pre-week 7. Now it's maybe the number 3, 4, 5 pick. And the number one pick for the Panthers. And if the Panthers start winning some games, which at the point does not look likely, it could have a little bit of a flippening here for the Bears. And if the Bears can't get into the top 2 picks to get one of the big name quarterbacks here in this draft, I mean, maybe there'll be 3 or 4 big name quarterbacks by the time the college football season is over. But if they can't get up there, they passed up a chance to draft someone with the first pick last year. And I know you could say, oh, well, they would have taken Bryce Young, and Bryce Young hasn't played well. But, whatever. They could have taken C.J. Stroud, right? There's nothing that was preventing them from taking the number 2 overall pick. Either way, it's a 50-50 chance at getting a guy who looks good, which I think they would take. We're going to start looking back on that decision, pretty negatively on this one. What are we going to look at here? It's interesting. The Raiders still can't rush the ball either. 2.8 yards per attempt. It's been a problem for them. It's kind of been on or off sort of situation, but it's been a problem for them. And it's interesting that the Bears were 8 of 13 converting on third down. So another thing where you're like, is this real or not? I don't know. Maybe it's a lot of short third downs, but keeping mistakes to a minimum and even having that short of an ADOT, I think, is what really saved them in this one. And that's something where against this sort of offense is going to work. Playing against the Raiders offense is going to work. Is it going to work against others? I'm not quite sure. Plus a 14.7 disadvantage in special teams and penalties, and they still ended up winning. 14.7 EPA advantage there. All right, don't have a lot to say about this game. Colts Browns. What a game. 38-39. Offensive explosion. Although it was more like a lot of turnovers kind of helped the explosion here for these guys. Adjusted score, both of the scores are quite a bit lower because, again, they were aided by short fields and turnovers and things like that. I had the Colts being slightly better in this one. Both teams ran way above expectation. Both teams were almost 15% pass rate under expectation in this one. Both teams had poor success rates. The Colts were a little bit better. But the Colts, just the turnovers. Now, I know Gardner Minshew, like maybe this is part of his DNA that I didn't fully acknowledge on here, but a fumble he had here. And if you take the fumbles, the sacks, the interceptions, 20 EPA loss. But what's weird is he actually played pretty well to get up to positive EPA on the game. So if I were going to look at this game, how I would look at it is say, like the Colts offense was fundamentally kind of better than the Browns, but the turnovers were crushing them, and that's what kept the Browns in this game. Deshaun Watson was awful. I mean, he only played 5 plays, but somehow in those 5 plays managed to lose 6 EPA, and it wasn't just turnovers. I mean, he had, I think, some sacks for 2.5 EPA lost. He just couldn't complete a pass. They just couldn't do anything, and I don't know what's going on. I guess he was cleared to come back in the game, but then Stefanski chose not to bring him back in the game. There was all this controversy in the last couple of weeks. Well, not all this controversy, but there was some controversy the last couple of weeks about the fact that he had been medically cleared to play, but then he wasn't playing. I don't know. Something to watch there. Maybe the marriage between the Browns and Watson is a little bit rocky right now, to say the least. Phillip Walker came in. EPA was okay, but man, 20% completions under expectation. Not great there. Can we get DTR back in there again? I guess, well, whatever. They ended up winning this game. So he's going to be probably the guy for them to continue bringing in. He finds a way to win somehow on this one. Although they were not successful offensively at all. Let's talk Myles Garrett here, right? Myles Garrett, strip sack, touchdown, blocked field goal, although I think it was a 60-yard field goal, so maybe we don't give him too much credit for the block on that one. And now I saw a stat that by age 28, now he may have started a little bit earlier, but it's funny that he has more sacks than anyone else in NFL history, including Reggie White, although I think Reggie White started late, so it's not quite an apples-to-apples comparison here. The Colts also ran the ball 40 times for 168 yards. Maybe they turned to the run because Minshew was so turnover prone. I'm not quite sure here. But it's weird that the Browns defense, from a lot of fundamental metrics, didn't look very good at all, giving up 13.3 yards per attempt and getting run on pretty easily. So wasn't the greatest effort by the Browns defense, but they did get the big plays and the turnovers, which not something you want to rely on a lot going forward, but you'll take it and you'll bank it in this particular game. Most surprising result from the day, probably Patriots Bills. Patriots took a good lead. Bills came back, and then Patriots get the final score at the end of the game in order to win it. Bills, 51.4% success rate versus 49.2. So it's pretty close. At the Bills being the slightly better team, so maybe you could say they were a little bit unlucky in this one. I mean, if you think about this, Bills success rate, right, was higher than more than 2% higher than what the Ravens success rate was when they just went off in their game. So not getting the big plays that they need, and not getting the conversions that they need sometimes, getting a missed field goal, a failed 4th and 2 conversion. Those sorts of plays are keeping the Bills offense down, along with issues when it comes to turnovers. Another turnover, another interception for Josh Allen in this one, which was the most negative play of the game by EPA lost. But generally, like, both offenses perform pretty well. So it's more the Bills defense is failed them in this game than the Bills offense. But it's kind of weird because I was reading through the recap of this game and they were talking about the Bills' inability to kind of like make plays when they needed to. But in fact, the Bills were a lot better on 3rd and 4th down in this game. So maybe it's like a weird thing where you see them fail to convert when they get in the red zone and get touchdowns when they get in the red zone. But the Patriots are even worse about getting touchdowns when they were down in the red zone. But yet when you lose the game, everyone remembers those plays and you kind of forget the plays when you win the game, especially when you win it at the end of the game. Josh Allen, like, pretty decent numbers for 54 plays. So he played a lot of involvement for him. They didn't rush the ball well. Oh, actually, it was okay rushing the ball there. Allen, solid game. He had the interception, 11 ADOT. He's throwing the ball down the field. He's completing at a higher rate than expectation. About a 1/4 point EPA per play. 4.5 on rushing and scrambling. He's still doing that. But then Mac Jones was really like the story as far as his number, 3.3 ADOT. So I don't know, a little suspect here. His numbers as far as putting up 0.34 EPA per play. By far his best game of the season. He's been turnover, sack, fumble plagued this year. Only 1.6 EPA lost on any of those sorts of plays. I think it's just 1 sack that he took on that one. So that's a massive difference from what we've seen from him normally. But almost all the value that he was generating was via yak and not via the air with such short throws there. So, Bills are kind of interesting, right? They could have even lost another game, even though I have them as being better in some of the games that they've lost. There is like a world where you look up at them and they're not, and they're actually, 3 and 4 after these games so far. I don't think they've had their bye yet, right? So they would have lost even another game so far this season. I don't know. My power rankings are starting to look a little suspect with them up at the top. But again, like, my adjusted scores have them as being the better team here on the road in New England. So I don't know. They're probably not going to fall as much as my adjusted scores as some people would want them to. Giants versus Commanders. Giants get the victory. Final score 14-7. Magic Johnson with some great commentary after the game. For those who may have missed it, Magic let us know in his Magic Johnson way that it's tough to win when you only score 7 points. Yeah, hey, Magic Man knows football. He knows football. So, yeah, it is tough to win when you only score 7 points. I agree there. And just an ugly game, right? Now, the adjusted score is much higher, 26-20, because the success rates are much higher. Just so many drive-killing plays, especially when we're talking about the Commanders here and their drive-killing plays, right? 1 of 15 on 3rd down. Like, how do you even do that? Now, their success rate overall was pretty bad at 34.7%, but still, you can do the math here. 1 of 15 is lower than 34.7%. Like, they were just really, really bad on 3rd down. 6 sacks and an interception. Ouch. And then on the other side, I had the Giants also having their own turnover issues. A Saquon Barkley fumble took points off of the board when they were down, inside the 10-yard line for Washington. So that took points off of the board there, and that's why their performance was a little bit better than what the final score was here. Again, haven't watched the game, but I like seeing a 42-yard pass to Jalen Hyatt. I think they need more and more of him there. I like an explosive play here for Saquon Barkley. Those are good. And then another 33-yard pass to Jalen Hyatt. Yeah, I like seeing that. Me likey that a lot. They need more Jalen Hyatt out there. I was pretty high on him coming into this year too. So maybe I'm kind of talking my confirmation bias here, but they definitely need more of him in this offense. And I don't know if it's Tyrod Taylor, who's actually pretty good at throwing the ball down the field, which is a weird thing. You never think about like these rushing quarterbacks as being good down the field throwers, but sometimes that's what they do. Sometimes it's like all feast or famine. They rush the ball, they scramble, or they throw it down the field. And he was able to do that in this game, it looks like. Although maybe there was a big yak on these plays. I didn't see them, but those are still some big plays. And Hyatt's normally not a yak guy, but a down the field guy. What else do we have here? 9.6 yards per attempt for Tyrod Taylor. Pretty good, pretty good. Now, Sam Howell. I don't know, man. Lost a quarter of a point EPA per play on this one. 15.3 EPA loss to sacks, fumbles, interceptions. Now, he had the INT, which was 4.9 of that. But still, more than 10 EPA lost, I believe, all to sacks, because I don't think he had a fumble. Another 6 sacks in this game. 40 through 7 weeks. Okay, let's do the quick math on that one. So we have 40 times, let's say he plays a full season, which I doubt, times 17, divided by 7. That is 97 sacks. That would be an all-time record. I think 92 is the record right now. So extra game, though, so we'll give him some credit there. But still, the thing is, it's not just like you're taking a ton of sacks. There's just no performances. And there has to be some performance where he doesn't have a major negative from sacks. He hasn't taken fewer than 4 sacks in any game this season, any game at all. Like, you got to have some performances where you're not having that anchor of the sacks. And I get it. They may be on third down. They may be trying to make plays, all this sort of stuff. But guess what? If you're going 1 for 15 on third down, then you're not getting enough upside for extending plays with these sacks that you would want to. You got to be a little bit quicker with the ball, or at least try to get yourself in a position to maybe convert on 4th down. It looks like they did have a 4th down try with about a minute left in the game, and failed on that one. All right, Bucks Falcons, a very disgusting. Oh, not very disgusting. Sorry, I don't mean, apologies, Bucks and Falcons fans, but not the most compelling, I'll say. Who's gonna win the division? Top of the NFC South performance here. 16-13 Falcons Bucks. They trade some field goals at the end of the game for the Bucks closing the gap, and then the Falcons coming back and taking the lead. Adjusted score is a bit higher, 22-17. And, Likes thinks the Atlanta was solidly better in this game. Better success rate for sure, 43% versus 37%. And that's with the Bucks having a turnover advantage. We'll talk about Desmond Ridder in a second. A slight advantage on 3rd and 4th down, and then a penalty and special teams advantage on this one also. So that's why the Falcons are seen as being even a little bit better than what that differential is there. It's a weird thing going on with the Falcons when it comes to their offense this year. And, I've been hard on Desmond Ridder. I was skeptical when he was playing well. I'll put it in quotes because he had like a pretty poor completion percentage versus expected. There were just some like big plays that were being mixed in there. But I also think now maybe I don't want to say people are too low on Ridder because I'm definitely not high on him still. But because he had some bad turnover in this game, and those seem to have really stuck in people's minds because he gave away the ball in ugly ways, close to scoring, that people still might be putting too much of the blame on him if they had lost this game. Now, they didn't even lose the game. Because when you look about their drop back passing, and some of his fumbles were on the ground, so that's why it didn't affect the drop back passing. But 83rd percentile, 0.36 EPA per drop back in this one. Like, they were pretty good passing the ball. And I like to see that fundamentally. I would rather see that and then turnovers, which could maybe be cleaned up, than sometimes guys who don't have any turnovers but can't do anything offensively with all these different weapons. So I'm going to give him a little bit of credit there, and I think that they didn't show a ton of faith in him with a pass rate 13.4% under expectation, but he's still able to make some plays there. Now they also had fumbles on the other side and mistakes on the other side. The top 3 plays in this game were all negatives. And then Mayfield also had an interception later. So that's what kept the score down. Teams were moving the ball okay, but then not able to really put it into the end zone. So Ritter, 10 yards per attempt, 0 interceptions, 1 sack. Not bad. Not bad fundamentals there. Just the fumbles were killer. But even still, you net everything out, positive 0.14 EPA per play. And I don't know. I feel like you look at that versus you look at the rushing attack, where even if you don't have the fumbles in there, let's just look at like the running backs. And remember, this was the most efficient running attack in the game, or one of the top 3, let's say, in EPA per play last season, in success rate last season. Bijan Robinson barely played because he was sick, so he only had 1 design run, so we're not going to count that. But the other guys, Tyler Algier, 21 design runs, negative 2.6 EPA per play, 33% success rate. Patterson, a little bit better. He only had 10 design runs, but he only had slightly negative EPA, so not bad there, but still only a 30% success rate. It was really a big play that he had that kept him up there. The offense is the success rate has just not been good. Not been good. I know Ritter had the fumbles, but still the overall success rate for these running backs, 33% in this game. They're just not doing nearly what they were doing the year before. So Ritter playing through that, I think maybe give him a little bit more credit. I know the negatives were bad, but guess what? He's making positives too in the passing game. So you gotta think net, where are we overall? And overall, he was adding value when he was dropping back to pass. And overall, he was adding value, period. Even including the fumbles. So I don't know. That's how I'm going to look at it, versus it seems like people are really concentrating on his mistakes there, which are bad and maybe killers against a better team, but I'm not going to jump all over him too much. Now, speaking of killers, like the Bucs really can't rush the ball. Success rate of 15% trying to rush the ball. Negative 0.4 EPA per play on design runs. It's bad. So Baker did okay in this game by the numbers, and I don't know, how much credit or blame he's going to get on this particular one, but man, this Bucs team, they didn't really run the ball that great for multiple years now, but at least they allowed Baker to pass a lot with 42 attempts in this one. But Rachaad White, 34 yards on 13 carries. Keyshawn Vaughn, 7 yards on 4 carries. Ugh, nasty. We're talking about 2 yards per carry sort of stuff for them. They're going to need to get that going a bit, even if they do turn it over and let Baker go, because, he's going to take some sacks and he's going to throw some interceptions. That's what Baker's going to do, whether you like it or not. All right, let's get to the late window now. So the big marquee game here was Taylor Swift versus Chargers fan, whoever the Chargers fan is. I gotta have a little commentary on Chargers fan. So, I get it that people want to join in to whatever the discourse is. I was on the team of people like defending her versus calls of being like a plant or something because she had a Minnesota Vikings jersey on before in the past, this and that. All silliness. It all shows you we have just too much time between one game and another that we have to have this whole conversation. But any goodwill that I had out the window immediately when I saw her at this game in Kansas City. And then at one point in the game, she and the person next to them were like wearing Buffalo Wild Wing hats. I mean, she's shilling for Buffalo Wild Wings. Come on, lady. Like, you had some goodwill. You did well. Like, don't be so eager. I don't think she's a fake or anything like that as far as being a fan, but don't be so eager to cash in on this fame and like do 5,000 radio hits and everything else. That does kind of rub me a little bit the wrong way. But anyway, hey, can't knock the hustle. Okay, let's look at the numbers overall in this one. This was a 14-point victory for the Chiefs, 11 points by adjusted score, so that's still pretty healthy. Chiefs passed the ball 13% over expectation, and it should have been much higher. I mean, I don't know. I guess you got to keep on giving the running game a chance to do something, but man, I was just cursing my TV. I was kind of rooting for Kansas City in this one. I like Mahomes. I'm a Mahomes stan, even if everyone is at this point. I was kind of cursing my TV every single time that they ran the ball in this one because, man, it was ugly. It was ugly. If you look at the numbers, right? So the Chiefs, they only ran the ball 17 times. So not a lot, you could say. But I don't know. I just couldn't get over it. They never gained more than 7 yards on any run. 70% of those runs were 3 or fewer yards. So just like not being successful. They were below the 10th percentile in rushing efficiency. And the reason I find that to be killer is because they were passing the ball with ease, 95th percentile passing the ball. They're averaging half an expected points gained on every single pass attempt. And then they're losing 0.4 expected points on average on every single rushing attempt. Yeah, I mean, there's probably some value in mixing it up. There's probably some value in giving your quarterback a break so he doesn't have to drop back every single time. But we're talking about Patrick Mahomes here. Dude dropped back to pass like 80 times a game when he was at Texas Tech. I think it's in his DNA to not care whether the defense knows he's going to pass it or not. That's why he's so good at converting those third and longs when everyone on the planet knows that he's going to pass the ball. Anyway, what's weird about the Chargers is I actually thought they were playing better than what their numbers say when just watching the game. And this, again, it goes to maybe look at the numbers first and then watch the game second, which I did not do for this one. Because they only had a 40% success rate passing the ball. And then I knew they were kind of bad rushing the ball outside of the Joshua Kelly. Joshua Kelly had a long 49-yard touchdown, which was their most positive play of the game. So I knew they were bad rushing the ball, but I thought they were a little bit better passing the ball. I think things just went off of the rails in the second half where they just couldn't, they couldn't get back into the game when they were given some opportunities by Kansas City. The Blake Bell fumble in particular is the most negative play of the game. So that was the big one for that kind of kept them in the game when Kansas City was already up a touchdown. It was the third quarter, 2nd down and 7 on the Chargers 26. They were going in for what basically would have been the kill shot. I know 2 touchdowns with a quarter and a half left doesn't seem like a kill shot, but it's really hard to win when you're down by that much that late against a good offense. When they didn't get that, it kind of let the Chargers back in the game, but then they couldn't complete it there. Mahomes, MVP favorite, definitely. It should be more so than what it even is. 0.6 EPA per play in this one. CPOE off the charts, scramble master, a couple of huge third down scrambles that they ended up converting in this one. And, doesn't make mistakes. 3.1 EPA lost, so he did have some EPA loss. There was like some mistakes there. I think he took a sack in this one that was fairly significant. Let me see. Maybe he took 2 sacks. So there were like some negatives in this one. No, it was only 1 sack. Oh, he had the interception. I forgot about that. But that one actually wasn't like highly, highly negative. It didn't even register on the top 10 most impactful plays of the game. So, Mahomes doing his thing, only losing 3.1 EPA on those plays. If you throw an interception in a certain circumstance, then what was the circumstance here? It must have been like a 3rd and long or something. Where is it? Sorry, this is not great podcasting here. Oh, here it is. It was 3rd and 12. So, yeah, 3rd and 12, chuck it up, give Hardman a chance to do something. And, as Mecole Hardman does, he failed trying to do something. And it's an interception, but it's kind of like an arm punt in a way on 3rd and 12, because where were they at? They were at their own 39, and then the Chargers started on their own 21. So let's do some quick math on that one. What is that? That's 29 yards plus 11 yards. So that's a 40 yards. It's like a 40-yard punt. So, yeah, it's basically a 40-yard punt on 3rd and 12, and that's why the interception for Mahomes is, again, a good strategic decision in a way from Mahomes, even though you could say throwing up a 50-50 ball to Mecole Hardman is never a good strategic decision. Hartman had good props to Hartman though. He had a good punt return, I think it was, in the first half, and then he also converted a third down right on that same exact drive, which ended up leading to a touchdown. So props to him on this one. This was also one where the Chargers got the ball first, which helped them kind of stay in the game. They were also scoring themselves early, which helped them stay in the game, but it was a little bit of an onslaught from Kansas City going field goal, touchdown to start the game. Interception, but again, on an arm punt, and then another touchdown. So they did kind of lay it to them and put the Chargers in a poor position. Another huge game for Travis Kelce with Taylor Swift in the crowd. It's weird. Like the Taylor Swift propaganda is working on me, at least, because maybe what's happening is a double things. Taylor Swift propaganda, and then the fact that we have a car in the shop and I'm driving my my in-laws' old car where I can't do like Spotify playlists. So I'm just listening to the radio with my kids. When I listen to the radio with my kids, they want to listen to whatever, like, hot music hits station. And Taylor Swift is just constant on there. Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodrigo are basically, and Doja Cat. I'm basically getting those in rotation. Like every third song is one of those. And it's like, hey, you know what? Taylor Swift's not so bad. I'm kind of digging some of the hits. You worked. You got me, NFL. You got me. What's it called? The Illuminati got me here with the Taylor Swift propaganda. Herbert, I don't know. I mean, whatever. He's still in the top 10 in EPA per play. Kind of a poor effort in this one. I'm not sure how much the finger is affecting him on these sorts of plays. He was under a decent amount of pressure. Just too many mistakes. Interception, sacks, taking sacks in this one. Too much on this one. Also, I got to do a special shaming here for Brandon Staley. 0 for 4 on fourth down decisions where he could have gained 1% win probability. Now, in his defense, these were not traditional win attempts. One of them was a traditional one. Actually, now I think about it, none of them were traditional ones. They were all on the Chargers side of the field. And it's all one of these ones where it's like, oh, we're within one touchdown. It's a one possession game. It's a one score game. First of all, you're on the road. Even if you score a touchdown, you give the ball back to the other team that can go and take the lead again. Even if it's a one possession game, that means you have to go to overtime and win in a game where you're not the favorite. So, like, you are down. When you're down one score in this game, let me bring up some of the win probabilities here, just to give you some context. And when people are looking at these one possession games, what it really means in terms of actual, like, where you are in terms of one win probability. I mean, the Chiefs are still up around 80% the entire time in the second half when they're up by this one possession most of the time here. You're still behind the 8 ball, as the Chargers. Don't think of it as you're in this situation where, hey, we're hanging tough. No, you're behind the 8 ball here. You're on the road. Like, you need to go for it sometimes, even if your offense looks a little clunky. I mean, do you not have faith in Justin Herbert and this passing offense? Even if they're not looking great. I understand it's 4th and 3 on your own 35-yard line and you're only down a touchdown. So you don't want to do it. Well, guess what? You got to start doing it. You got to do it. They gave about 7% win probability with those 4 decisions. They ended up converting one later, which actually wasn't even a 1% win probability gain because the score was more out of hand at that point. But I don't know. Like, someone's got to be telling Staley that these are good decisions to take. I know he's going to get a lot of shit if they don't convert them. And, he lost them the game because everyone's like, oh, they were still in it. They weren't as in it as people think they were in it. That's what people need to start learning. That's the power of these models. They can help us out when you're on your own side of the field, when you're facing a good offense, when you're down one possession in a game, and when you have a decent offense yourself. Take those little ones. You had 4 opportunities. Again, it's not the thousands of opportunities that Mike Florio thinks you need in order to be able to make a decision. He thinks you need 1,000 chances before you can, like, do the right thing on individual chances. But it's 4 chances. You make 2 out of 4, you're in a winning position. Like, you've gained from that. You had a chance. You gave the ball away a couple more times to a Chiefs offense that's like highly likely to get points anyway in better field position, but you might get a lot more points yourself. And that's what you're really trying to do. Score points. That's what we're trying to do here, people. Give your offense a chance to do that a little bit more often, Staley. Okay. Rams, Steelers, pretty ugly game from actually, the success rate is decent for the Steelers, but they don't have any big plays. Like they had a good success rate over 50% offensively, but their total offensive EPA was just a little bit over 50%. Actually ran the ball pretty well in this one. I didn't watch much of it here. It sounds like the Steelers defense did a job on Matthew Stafford, in particular, this interception to open the second half from TJ Watt, 7.3 EPA loss, 16% win probability loss. That's a big one. Not only was it, a pick on the LA side of the field, but then he took it back to the 7-yard line. And, the EPA, the expected points for your team when the Steelers grab the ball. So that's like what you're subtracting out of the EPA line here. Once you start to get inside the 10-yard line, man, it just goes up exponentially. So getting it all the way down to the 7 was huge. Huge run back portion of that also for TJ Watt. 19.7 completion percentage over expectation for Stafford. Looks like a bad game. It's kind of weird because people are like, oh, he's playing at an EPA, playing it at a MVP sort of level. Maybe I bought into that hype a little bit because of the fact that his adjusted efficiency by my numbers looks better, puts him in the top 10, puts him in the top, 6 or 7. And I don't know, this one was not good. Did mitigate the negatives though a bit by having some big plays offensively, but not completing nearly enough. Kenny Pickett, I mean, his numbers look okay on this one, but they didn't run the ball. I mean, they didn't pass the ball a ton. He didn't have to drop back that often. Part of it is rushing and scrambling, which is nice that he has that, but you'd like to see a little bit more, through the air. But it does look like his air EPA was okay on this one. Didn't make a lot of mistakes. Not bad, but he's kind of falling into that like Alex Smithian sort of performances, right? With maybe a little bit too many mistakes. Sometimes it's like you can add some value on the ground. You can make some bigger plays if your receivers are helping you out. Again, Alex Smithian there. But if he can probably have a decent career. Just got to keep those negatives down a bit. Okay, let's go ahead and shame Sean McVay on this one too, just like Staley. 54-yard field goal attempt on 4th and 4. Come on, dude. You got to do better than that. And it's especially bad because there was a sequence where the Rams had 3rd and 5 and they run the ball. So in my opinion, if you're in like no man's land, in other words, you're in this situation where you're on the other team's side of the field, but you're in a field goal range where you're starting to get above, 50 yards. So that your chances of making it starts going down significantly with each yard you're further out. If you run on 3rd and 5 in that situation, that should be, you're thinking rather than throw and set up a 4th and 5, I'm going to run and set up an easier 4th down and then go for it. Like you should have in your head, hey, we're probably not going to convert this necessarily on 3rd and 5 running the ball, but we can set up the 4th down. So they did run the ball. They only got the 1 yard and then they caved and decided to kick the field goal rather than go for it on 4th down, where in my opinion, 4th down had to be like, this is a go for it on 4th down. We're going to run it on 3rd and then we're going to go for it on 4th. And they didn't do it. Now, a couple other times, according to the numbers, they should have done it on their own side of the field. You're not getting that from Sean McVay, no matter what. Okay, yeah, 0 4th down attempts for the Rams per usual. Seattle, Arizona. Seattle much better in this game by success rate. A lot better converting 3rd and 4th downs. Turnovers were a bit of an issue, but they played right through that. So the fact that they had this, like their adjusted point differentials the same as the actual score, because of the fact that, you mitigate out some of those turnovers with 3rd and 4th down success, and it kind of all nets out there. Good defensive performance. And Josh Dobbs, the shine has kind of come off of him doing a elegant tank for them the last couple of weeks. But I still think due to primacy bias, we're going to lower the primacy effect. I don't know which one it is. Sometimes it's effect, sometimes it's bias. I get confused. I think it might be primacy effect. We're not going to give a lot of shit to the Cardinals for Josh Dobbs and him looking bad these last couple of weeks because he looked feasible early in the season. So this is pretty good for the Cardinals. They can just like tank out the rest of the year and we'll all still say, hey, Josh Dobbs, he was okay, right? Even if he continues to just go down the drain the entire rest of the season. Let's bring up Tankathon. Where are they? Are they going to sneak up in here? Well, they can't catch the Panthers because the Panthers haven't won a game yet. And they're on bye. But 1-6, there they are, slotted into second place here. Unfortunately, the Texans are doing pretty well. So their pick from the Texans is all the way up at the middle of the first round. It's 16th overall. So they're not getting any juice out of that or any big juice out of that. But still, good position. They're in good position here. Let's see what happens when Kyler comes back. I think Kyler is going to come back. Starts to get a little dicey. Josh Dobbs is doing your thing, doing the thing you might want here. If you even dropping down from second to third place could be a huge difference in the value of your pick there. But you do have Kyler. I don't know. It's a tough spot there. Tough spot. What happened here? Seahawks, bad rushing the ball, good passing the ball. Good game for Geno Smith. Although part of that rush is a fumble from Geno. I think it was a bad exchange fumble. I don't know how much it was his fault or not, but that was the big negative. And again, like fumbles are always huge negatives because they're done. They normally come on good down and distance situations. This was on 2nd and 3. Like a fumble on 2nd and 3 is a killer because it's a very good expected points type of situation because you not only are you expected to convert that first down, you could make a big play in that type of situation. Also, Geno Smith had an interception on they were throwing from the Cardinals 16. I think it was the actual interception took place like right in the end zone sort of area. So gave away some points there too on 3rd and 4 on the Arizona 16-yard line, as Geno is wont to do. Josh Dobbs, though, 25-yard touchdown run. That's pretty good. So, again, he's doing all right. First touchdown here for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Congratulations there. Geno Smith is pretty good. It's pretty good in this game. Again, CPOE king, so he has 12% completion percentage over expectation, about a quarter a point EPA per play that he was adding in here. But it could have been a lot more without a couple of mistakes there for Geno. So I'm sure he made some great throws. That's what Geno does. Okay, let's wrap up the late window here with, I don't know, a game that I'm not sure too many people care about. I think Packers fans have given up on the season already. Broncos-Packers. Broncos end up winning it by 2. The adjusted score, I had the Packers being better by 1, but who cares? 42% success rate for the Broncos, 44 for the Packers, so slightly better. Packers leaned into the run quite a bit more, 10% pass rate under expectation, and actually pretty good efficiency passing the ball for both teams. But the Packers ran more often, so that kind of held down their overall efficiency to me more so than what you would have thought. A lot of positives in the impactful plays here, which is surprising because they didn't score that many points. I think it's just failures on some ability to get third downs. I mean, Jordan Love had an interception, but it was on 3rd and 20 it effectively killed the game. So it's just not going to have that much of an impact on win probability or expected points from that bad of a situation. Both quarterbacks are actually pretty good. Again, this is one of these things with Russell Wilson where I think both these quarterbacks are kind of playing for their 2024 jobs with their current team. I mean, Russell Wilson is going to be difficult to extract that contract for the Broncos, but I think they can do it if they really, if they really work it out well. Maybe they get someone to take some of that salary if he plays well enough down the stretch. But both teams, I think, are kind of out as far as real playoff chances. But Love could maybe play himself into, being their guy next year. And he wasn't bad in this game. Although I think some people will look at the results and maybe not be too happy about it when you start looking up at the Packers, who are sitting in 7th, tied for 7th in the tankathon here at 2-4 right now. Lost 3 in a row. So yeah, that's the shine off of it. 2-1. They were sitting at 2-1. I saw the Packers ranked in the top 10 by some power rankings when they were sitting at 2-1, 3 losses in a row, and all of a sudden the Vikings are going to be passing them pretty soon. Obviously, the Vikings fundamentally a much better team than the Packers this year. All right, let's get to the last game here, Sunday night. Eagles in their Kelly green uniforms, which everyone loves. Might be no better look here than A.J. Brown with the visor in the Kelly green uniforms, breaking tackles, heading into the end zone here. Not really like a close game at all, despite the fact that the Eagles tried to like give it away when it came to turnovers here. Eagles win by 14. They were up by 7 for quite a while here and then extended it to 14 eventually when the Dolphins offense fell completely flat in the second half. And the adjusted difference is 10, so a little bit more narrow, but, about there. I don't think the adjusted scores can really handle how good the Eagles are on the tush push or the brotherly shove. Like the adjusted scores get broken by the fact that they have such a high success rate and EPA gained on those. We think that will regress, and it seems to never actually happen. But just a better success rate. The Dolphins offense had a bad game. Worst success rate of the season, worst EPA per play of the season, and 10 penalties for 70 yards. So 5.4 EPA lost to the Eagles on those penalties. Eagles did not have a single penalty. So that was another one that really came into play. Some of that's fluky. Some of that, you got to have some discipline there, Dolphins. Tyreek Hill, that 27-yard touchdown to cut the lead to 7 points at halftime. That was pretty sweet. That was one of those ones that, this dude is just incredible. Like an incredible athlete. It's amazing you can have like all the best athletes in the world and then you throw him out there and he just looks like on a different level than anyone else. When Tua threw that ball, I thought it was like, okay, there's like no human being can catch up to that. And he just gets to it pretty easily for the over-the-shoulder catch. The defensive backs must be thinking the same thing because they keep on letting him catch it. They must be like, oh, no one can get to that ball. But he can get to everything. So Jalen Hurts, yeah, there were some big negatives in this one. So we had a strip sack fumble in the first quarter, lost 5 EPA, lost 16.5% win probability. So that was a big one, a big mistake on 3rd and 8. Hurts, you got to be a little bit. He's had some turnover issues this year. Like fundamentals, really good for the Eagles offense and the Eagles passing offense. Turnovers and losses have been bad. And it happened again in this game, but it didn't matter because their fundamentals were like off the charts good the rest of their game. So yeah, that. Then in the third quarter, first play of the drive, it has the tip ball, which ends up being a pick 6. 8 EPA lost, almost 25% win probability lost on that one. 2 massive plays, but it didn't matter. Didn't matter where you're too good outside of that. Didn't matter when you have 15 targets for 10 catches, 137 yards, and a touchdown to A.J. Brown in this one. Crazy. So A.J. Brown, since week 3, he's averaging 12 targets, 8 receptions, 140 yards a game, or his averages so week 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or do they take a week off? They might take a week off there. And plus 3 touchdowns in that stretch. Pretty good. 10.6 expected points on 4th down conversion. So 3 brotherly shoves, 1 32-yard completion to A.J. Brown on 4th and 3. So they got about almost half of that from the 4th and 3 big play to A.J. Brown. But still, the rest of that, when you're racking up 5, 6 expected points through brotherly shoves per game, that's huge. Dolphins were 0 for 2 on 4th down. So if you take the 4th downs from one team versus the 4th downs of the other team, Eagles 16 expected points advantage on this one, 4 for 4 on their conversions. Obviously, and 2 of them were inside their own 40-yard line where they converted them pretty easily. So again, Hurts almost negative 15 EPA on sacks, the strip sack, and the pick 6, but still quarter EPA. added per play, despite those negatives. That just shows you how good they were outside of that. Tua, bad game for him. I was shocked, kind of. Shocked may be overstating it, but I was very surprised when I looked at MVP odds this morning and saw that Tua was still in second place to Mahomes. Jalen Hurts in third. I know Josh Allen lost the game, but like, I don't know. I feel like Josh Allen's a lot better. Tua's been, some of the warts have been coming out in games like this. It's a tough game though in Philly. I don't know. Tua's like, his efficiency is starting to fall. Where does he stand now in EPA per play by my numbers? Yeah, he's fourth. So he's behind Allen. He's behind Brock Purdy. He's only slightly higher than guys like Lamar Jackson. So I don't know. I'm kind of a little surprised there. Someone like Lamar Jackson, I wouldn't be surprised if he got more MVP votes than Tua at this point. So I don't know. I mean, maybe they're playing going forward. The fact that he's going to turn things around. Really ugly interception on 3rd and 8. Maybe he's in a bad spot, he thought, on 3rd and 8. But, I mean, just throw the ball away, get some points, or potentially go for it on 4th down. Just threw up this, like, rainbow interception. Really not good. But I think the Dolphins, I mean, I still love the Dolphins. The rushing game didn't really come to play. That was also a problem in this one. Losing 0.17 EPA per run. That was something they really could have used in this game. They started to get it going a little bit in the second half, but it was completely dormant in the first half, and that was a problem for them and something they need to fix going forward if they're going to be able to win games like this one against another good offense that can perform well on the ground. All right, everybody. Let's see. Wait, there's a comment on here. Can you? I'm gonna answer one of these comments. Well, we'll see. If anyone else pops up here, I'll answer it. But says, here we go. Says, can you explain what major factors are used in most 4th down model calculations? Yeah. So it's pretty easy. Now, like what goes into certain numbers is not that easy to figure out, but the inputs are pretty easy. So the things that everyone focuses on, conversion probabilities. That's the thing everyone focuses on. That's the thing that's a lot more intuitive that you can almost, figure out in your head a little bit more. So it'll be, probability of making the field goal. For a punt, it'll just be your, average, what you assumed field position the team will have when they get the punt back, which then translates to expected points and win probability there. So there's not really a conversion there, but making the field goal and your probability of converting the 4th down with some extra juice for the fact you can make big plays on 4th down. So it's like that's the bigger part of it. And this is the part that people don't focus on nearly enough, I think, when they're talking about these models, because it's very, very opaque, is your win probabilities underneath all these scenarios. Win probability the field goes in, win probability the field goal misses, win probability if you convert, win probability if you don't. So those are all the different things. So it's your conversion probabilities times your win probabilities. And in that way, it's kind of a simple calculation at that point, but it's getting those win probabilities in particular. That is the very, very difficult point. When we're near the end of the game, coaches can kind of figure out, this will be really, really huge for my win probability if we make it. It'll be really, really bad if we don't make it. But it's more difficult for coaches to figure that out earlier in the game on their own side of the field. Like, what are the win probabilities going to be post-play, depending upon different outcomes in these scenarios? That's the thing that people have problems with. And that's when the models can be very useful, of course, looking at historical rates for the most part. One other question here. Kelsey is 34. How much of a blow to Mahomes would be to lose the freelance option route from Kelsey? I think it'd be a huge blow. We don't have a ton of sample on it. Also, he just didn't miss any games forever. I mean, it was actually Tyreek Hill who missed games back when they were both on the team, and Mahomes still performed really, really well. So that one was hard. That one was really hard to figure out, like, what does Kelsey mean? We have that week 1. Do you want to read too much into it or not? I don't know. I do think they are particularly bereft at options other than this. It was kind of interesting that, like, I think Kelsey was actually taking a breather on the Blake Bell catch and fumble after that. So it was like the one play, the on-off splits. The one play Kelsey goes off the field. They have some problems there. I mean, it's problematic. So you have to keep your fingers crossed here, and you're gonna have to invest in the position. hopefully going forward. I like them. I was actually calling that they should have drafted Sam Laporta. That was my dream pick for them this year. Didn't end up happening, of course. But Kelsey's been awesome. I mean, God, the guy does not age. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe final question here. It says in MLB, players need around 700 plate appearances before their stats stabilize. What do we know about this number for quarterbacks, specifically dropbacks? I don't know. You need like a career? No, just kidding. You need a lot. From what I've seen, and I don't have this right in front of me, so I'm postulating a bit here because I'm thinking about the Bayesian calculation that I do and how the standard deviation decreases. I would say 2 seasons are pretty good. Now, I know we have the outlier kind of Josh Allen jumps in your 3rd year situation, but normally if we get up to 500, 600, 700, 800. So maybe in a similar sort of thing as about the 700 plate appearances. There might be some similarity there. In dropbacks, they start to stabilize. Now, the problem is that stability is still contingent upon being in the same system, playing in the same place. If quarterbacks move from one location to another, all bets are off. Normally, their numbers go down. Now, some of that is not just because they're moving. Most of that is probably that their numbers were inflated before because quarterbacks don't leave unless a team allows them to leave. And if a team allows them to leave, then they probably think the quarterback is not as good as his numbers. Whereas for a batter, 700 plate appearances, you could probably go and drop that in, just drop it into a different team. And I wouldn't adjust my expectations at all at that point. So it's more like 700 dropbacks for a quarterback within the same system. You start to get some decent stability. Still with higher, though. You're not getting the same level of stability that we're talking about for a major league player, and especially not the same level of like fundamental stability outside of the surroundings, which have to be accounted for much more so in the NFL. All right, everybody. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to try to drop. I'm actually going to go through here and put some timestamps on YouTube. I got some people complaining about that. So some fans want to get in there and just hear my take on their one team and disagree with it. So I'll go ahead and do that on YouTube. Check that out. Otherwise, I'll try to make sure I come back on Friday this week. Apologies for not being able to do that last week. Otherwise, check out everything on the site. The Sunday night review, advanced review post at unexpectedpoints.substack.com is free for all to view, so you can check that out. And otherwise, I'll be talking to everyone here at the end of the week. Thanks so much.